The second tenet is to engage in a mindful connection with animals. And the science has actually shown that when we interact with animals in a positive way, it helps to reduce our stress. It helps to improve our own health and well-being and longevity. And you contrast that with, again, the factory farm or slaughterhouse worker, what that does to people. Could you imagine what it would be like to work in a slaughterhouse where for 8 hours a day you're cutting the throats of animals? It's a very difficult, painful, bloody job. And, if you have school children, think about the different sort of experiences that they would have at visiting a berry patch or an orchard and picking plant foods versus going to a slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse experience can be traumatic. And, we're concerned also about children in 4-H and Future Farmers of America projects and what that does to kids who raise an animal, they get to know this individual, and then they have to send them to slaughter. What does that teach? It teaches insensitivity, and it teaches that those other animals are commodities. They're not living creatures. And that sort of mindset is, I think, dangerous, and it can jump the species barrier. And of course, with Farm Sanctuary, one of our primary interests is in encouraging people to see farm animals very much like they see their cats and dogs. In our country, we have cats and dogs as part of our families. We recognize that they have feelings and relationships with ourselves and with others. They have memories. They dream. When dogs sleep, you can see them kicking and dreaming. Same thing with farm animals. You can go into the pig barn, you see our pigs dreaming and kicking. So they're not that different. We have sheep at the sanctuary who love to be petted. So when you'll pet them for a while, and when you're ready to walk away, they start pawing at you, saying, "Keep petting me." We have turkeys that will follow you around like puppy dogs. Sometimes when you sit down in the barnyard, they will come and sit on your lap. They're not that different. And then, of course, there are pigs, I had a picture of a pig with getting a belly rub, which they totally love. These pigs, we have these 500-pound pigs. You walk up to them, you touch their tummy, and they'll flop over for a belly rub. And they will grunt, and they will communicate to you that they appreciate and enjoy it and want you to keep going. Sort of like our sheep sometimes who will paw at you, say, "Come on, keep petting me, I like that." So these animals communicate in these ways when we pay attention. And, what is ironic is that farmers who raise animals by the thousands don't understand them. How can you understand a pig if you put them in a 2-foot wide crate for their whole life? You can't. And in fact, treating animals that way changes your perception of them and creates a misperception. One of our first visitors to the farm in Watkins Glen, New York, was a pig farmer. And he went into our pig barn, and he saw some of our volunteers taking care of these 500-pound sows. And he said, "That's a dangerous situation." And he was genuinely worried about the well-being of our volunteers, because here we had these smaller people relative to these big animals. And he said, "Those animals are violent and aggressive animals, and you can't trust them." And I said to him that, the animals here are friendly. They realize they're in a safe place. They have not attacked us the way he's describing. He said, "Look, I've raised these animals for years. They're violent and aggressive, and you can't trust them." And to make his point, he told a story of a mother pig he had who had babies. He took her babies away, and the mother came after him. And he used that to justify this notion that these are violent animals, without recognizing that his taking the babies away caused the mother to react. So there becomes these blind spots that people have where they don't recognize that these animals have their own emotions, their own feelings, their own experiences, and that they, like us, want to live happy, healthy lives. They want to be in a safe environment. They want to be with their friends and their family. They don't want to be hurt. They don't want to be mutilated. And on factory farms today, a common practice is cutting off parts of the beaks of chickens, or cutting notches into the pig's ears, cutting the tails off of pigs. all done without painkillers. Male animals are castrated without painkillers. So these are like common practices. When I was at Cornell University, I took some animal science classes, and I saw the desensitization process happening right in front of me. In this one class, we were being taught routine farming procedures with pigs. So there were farrowing crates with the mothers and their piglets, and the teacher took a piglet out of the crate and had a tool and was showing us tail docking and ear notching. So he held the piglet up, took this tool and cut off the tail, and the piglet screamed like crazy, bled, and then he said, "Who wants to try this?" None of the students in the class wanted to try it. And they looked, when he said, "Who wants to try it?" They looked down, they started stepping back, they tried not to catch his eye. But eventually, one of the students in the class stepped forward and tried his hand at this. And this is Cornell University, this is animal science, these are pre-vet students, they want to please the teacher, they want to do well in class, so there's this pressure to do this. Then after the first student did it, a second student stepped forward and did it. Each time a new student stepped forward and did this, you could see the initial resistance in the room draining away. And you could see how we are social animals and we're influenced by those around us. If everybody is doing something and we're not, it's tough. So that is, luckily there were many people in the class and I didn't have to step forward and do that, but it was interesting just to watch psychologically how these behaviors became normalized. And then, on top of it, the teacher started explaining, we do this for their own well-being. We cut off their tails so they don't bite each other's tails. And the reason they bite each other's tails is because they're confined in these intensive confinement systems where they're bored and they're stressed and they're driven to aggression. So we create these bad situations that create bad behaviors, and then we cut off their tails and rationalize that we're doing it for their own good. And so it's just very interesting to watch that whole thing happen.